In the name of God, and with His blessing, we begin the episode. In the name of God, this episode features true stories that actually happened. It is a collection of real stories from listeners' experiences, your own tales. Let's start today's episode and say, in the name of God. The proverb says, be cautious, but don't be paranoid. And life is what taught me to be cautious of those close before those who are strangers. I am Ahlam, married for about 27 years. My story begins when my brother was visiting me, and because his house is far away, he stayed with me for a few days. Once, when we were invited to my sister's house, after we returned, I found her coming to me crying, saying that a large sum of money had been stolen from her. The house was turned upside down. We didn't know if the one who took it was a stranger or someone from the family. And if it was someone from the family, who exactly could it be? All we could do then was for my brother to reassure us, saying he would reach out to a friend of his, and this friend would help us find out what happened. But honestly, I didn't believe him. As for him, he left the house, and we kept waiting for him. After a few hours, he returned with a man who looked religious. He wouldn't look anyone in the eye. He kept his gaze on the ground the whole time. My brother introduced us to him and asked us to carry out all his requests. At that moment, this man asked us to gather everyone who had been present all over again. So I called my siblings and gathered them at my house. When they arrived, he was sitting in the middle on the sofa, and he asked all the boys and girls who hadn't turned 10 yet to open their hands. And they actually followed his instructions, until my son, who was 11 at the time, had his hand placed on his head. He began to mumble words that weren't audible. After a while, he said to my son, who was standing under his hand with his eyes closed in surrender, "What do you see, my dear? Describe the place you are in to me." My son then described the place where my sister said she kept the money. After that, he continued speaking to him and said, "Focus, my dear, focus and tell me who reached out and took the money." At that moment, my son said the name of the one who did it. But the strange thing was that the one who did it was my sister's own son. The boy stole from his mother, and because of that, my sister got emotional and accused the man that he was lying, and she defended her son. But when the man called out to the boy and looked at him intensely, the boy got scared and said, "I took it and bought the bike I really wanted. I wanted to buy it a long time ago, and Mom didn't agree. So I did that because I really wanted it." I was surprised how my sister even let it pass that her son got a bike without even asking where the money came from. But she grabbed him by the arm while she was completely livid, and she raised her hand to strike him. But the man signaled to her to take him away and deal with him at their home, when no one else was around. Indeed, the gathering dispersed, and everyone went back to their home. But my brother stayed sitting with his friend at my place. We were in the house, but they moved from the living room to the balcony. I made them tea and sat with them. The reason I joined was my intense curiosity to know how he managed to find the thief when no one else could. But my brother interrupted and said they were here with us now. I was confused and didn't understand his question. But after their conversation went back and forth, I realized they were talking about Djinn. That's when his friend smiled and said, "Honestly, if you want, I can let you experience and feel their presence." I saw the fear in my brother's eyes at that moment. He kept refusing while thanking him. As for me, it was a very good opportunity. I latched onto the idea. "I'd honestly like to try, please." He actually reached toward my hand. I felt them moving between my fingers, to the point where my hand was opening and closing on its own without me moving it. Was I scared or terrified? No, I was happy and excited, unlike my brother who was horrified by the sight of my hand and its movement. After a while, and after staying in that state for a few minutes, he finally withdrew them, and my hand returned to normal. Exactly 2 months after this happened, my father-in-law passed away. Since he was from a prominent family in Lebanon, everything was turned upside down. People coming and going. Everything was chaotic. At the same time, my father-in-law's youngest daughter was the most affected by his death, perhaps because she wasn't ready. He was everything to her, and she wasn't married, so naturally, she felt like her support system was gone. Regardless, she couldn't even stand on her feet during the funeral and collapsed to the floor. I helped her until I got her into her room. Then I sat with her by her side for a while. But as soon as she fell asleep, I took a breath and went out to see the people at the funeral. We were sitting in the house's reception hall. Suddenly, we heard a scream coming from her room. We all ran toward her, and I was the first one to reach her. When I tried to open the door, it wouldn't open. I knocked on the door and asked her to open it. But the screaming continued without stopping. As it went on, we were forced to break the door down. When her brothers and I entered, we found her literally collapsed on the bed. Her hair was messy, and her clothes were disheveled. We all understood the shock she was going through. We tried to comfort her and help her calm down, but she was with us and not with us at the same time. I was honestly conflicted, going back and forth between her and the guests until the funeral ended. Because the day had been so long, I went to my room feeling as though every part of my body was breaking from exhaustion. As soon as I put my head on the pillow, I fell asleep. But I woke up to a very strange sound coming from the balcony. At first, I thought I was dreaming, but when I focused on the sound, I discovered that someone was actually on the balcony. I crept out to see what was happening, but there was no one there, so I turned around to go back inside, and that's when I saw a very tall, black shadow. I swallowed hard in fear. I looked at the edge of the balcony next to me and gasped. I got scared and ran inside to wake anyone to help me. But as soon as I left the room, I found my feet taking me to her room. As much as I was afraid I wouldn't be able to help her, and I knew there was no time at all, I ran back to the balcony. I pulled her off the wall she was standing on, and I fell with her to the floor. After that, I sat up and said to her, "Are you crazy or what? What happened to you? How could you do this? Do you want to commit suicide and kill yourself?" She threw herself into my arms like a small child and kept crying. I patted her, tried to calm her down, and slept next to her that night. The next morning, she was acting very strangely with us. She would reply to one word and not to 10, drifting off and getting lost in the middle of a conversation. So, I took my mother-in-law aside and consulted with her. I told her, "Let's take her to a doctor. Maybe her mental state is really tired after my father-in-law's death." At first, my mother-in-law refused, but when she lost consciousness and the doctor came home and examined her, he prescribed her IV fluids, and he asked us to take her to a psychiatrist as well. This was because she had suffered a psychological trauma due to her father's death. It happened, and I started going with her to the doctor. I began to monitor her sessions myself, but her condition wasn't improving. On the contrary, it was getting worse. Not to mention that I noticed she would sit and laugh and talk as if she saw someone, even though there was no one in front of her. At that moment, I don't know why the sheikh, my brother's friend, came to mind. I didn't ask anyone in the house for their opinion, and it was the first time I acted on my own. I locked her in her room and called my brother. I got his address from him and went to him. I told him everything that had happened, and he, God bless him, agreed to go to the house with me. And as soon as we arrived, everyone was surprised when they saw him, but there was no time to explain. I pointed to the room and told him it was her room. He opened the door, but as he opened it, I was startled and my blood ran cold. And until now, I cannot forget what I saw, nor can I get over it. I saw her hovering over the bed, and as soon as we entered, we found her fall all at once. And with her fall, she was looking at the sheikh with anger and rage. So he asked me to help him restrain her. When I did that, she was resisting, hitting me, and pushing me away. But when he tied her waist to the bed, he gave me a Quran and asked me to help him and recite certain verses. And as I recited those verses, she would scream in rage. In a moment, her voice began to change, and I am sure I heard it with my own ears as she said to me, "I will destroy you, Ahlam. If I get out of here, I won't leave you. You are the reason for everything that is happening." Quote, I couldn't comprehend anything of what was happening. I was just scared. And because of my fear, I fainted. What I knew later was that the sheikh took me out behind the room and continued the session. And when I woke up, he hadn't finished yet. But after a while, he came out of the room, and his clothes were all soaked in sweat. He assured us and said, "Rest assured, she will sleep and won't remember anything that happened when she wakes up. But I need to know, is there a cat here, in the house or not?" At that moment, I answered him spontaneously, "Yes, there is a cat I bought her as a birthday gift." "Well, get rid of it before she wakes up, because everything she is going through is because of this cat, and take care. It must be gone by the time she wakes up." After that, he left. I took the cat and returned it to the shop where I bought it from. The next day when she woke up, she felt like her body was bruised, and of course, she asked about the cat, but we told her that no one had seen it since the funeral. She eventually adjusted to her father's death and got much better. And that's how my story ended. Thus, the story has concluded. The first one, and you have the right, my friend, to believe or disbelieve all or part of the story, especially since these are listeners' experiences, your own stories. Let's start the second story. Let's begin the second story. Initially, my story starts with my mother's death, but I don't want to say my name because it won't change anything. But I want to tell you that sometimes we walk the wrong path, while we know very well that it is wrong. You could say we became addicted to the wrong and got used to it. And as I told you, my story and Habiba's began when our mother died, and my father, after the funeral, specifically on the third day, dumped us on our grandfather. My grandfather, who was a retired Army Major General, opened his home to us, didn't abandon us, and helped us live at the same level. He took care of us and raised us. As for my father, all we knew about him was that he gets married and divorced a lot. Days passed, and my sister and I grew up. Our relationship with our aunts and uncles was good, and that is because they were nothing like my father. They were asking about us constantly, and they even offered my grandfather to help with our expenses, but he refused. When I finished college and came to propose, my grandfather advised me to marry my cousin and not marry outside the family. Honestly, I had my eye on her. She was a beautiful, polite, and educated girl. Anyway, I went with my grandfather and my sister to propose to her. My aunt and her husband were overjoyed, to the point that they suggested at the same meeting that they take Habiba, my sister, for their son. But honestly, I wasn't happy. I was afraid for my sister that she might see the same thing my mother saw from this family. But I couldn't object, and I was afraid of ruining my own engagement, and say nothing when I saw her happy. After that, the days passed quickly and we got married. Our wedding was on the same night, and everything was perfect and just fine. The day passed without any hassle because my father didn't even attend. But a while after the wedding, Habiba started complaining about her husband, and my natural reaction when she would come to tell me that was to say, "Never mind. Be patient. You will eventually understand each other." But the problems between them increased a lot in the first 2 months, to the point that she left the house for him and went to my grandfather's. And with that, they were all worried. They wanted me to turn against my wife and hold her responsible for her brother's actions, but that didn't happen. I was a loving husband to her throughout her pregnancy until she gave birth, and we discovered that the child we waited months for had a birth defect, and what bothered me even more was that she already knew. Even the doctor who was monitoring her case told her, yet she continued with the pregnancy, and so that's why I felt at that moment that I was never meant to be happy, or even have a child to lean on who could make up for all the world had shown me. And what added insult to injury was the message I got from my father on the first day of Ramadan. Before I even opened it, my heart was racing. I thought he was going to wish me a happy holiday and apologize for everything that had passed. But the content of the message was gloating over me and my firstborn child. I felt like I was set on fire the moment I read that message. I couldn't bring myself to stay in the house. I got dressed, grabbed my things, and went out into the street. I was lost, not knowing where to go or what to do. I kept wandering around until dawn, until I got a phone call from an unknown number. As soon as I answered, I discovered it was one of the neighbors. He was informing me that there was a fire in my apartment and they had called the fire department. I ran home like a madman. When I arrived, I found they had taken my wife and son to the hospital, and the apartment was destroyed. I rushed to the hospital. There, I found everyone except my father. His absence had a very negative effect on my mental state, but all I cared about at the time was checking on my wife and son, and that they would pull through in any way. Unfortunately, the fire caused severe disfigurement to my wife's body and face. As for my son, God reclaimed his soul, and he died. After that, I entered a deep spiral I couldn't find a way out of. Problems increased between me and my wife. We would be sitting there calmly with nothing going on. Suddenly, we'd argue and clash with each other. At first, I told myself it was because her mental state was shattered, and that, of course, was due to the burns and what she had been through. But this situation went beyond all that. I would walk in on her and find her talking to someone, and as soon as she saw me, she would go silent. At first, I thought she was talking to one of her friends on her AirPods, but over time, I became certain that she didn't even have them with her. And that's when she changed 180 degrees, as everyone testified. Once, we had her father, mother, and brother over, and we decided to bring my sister along as well to try and fix things between her and her husband. When she set the table, we were all surprised that the food was charred. I lost my temper and yelled at her. She kept crying, claiming that I was pressuring her and had changed toward her since the accident. And that, of course, wasn't true. My feelings toward her hadn't changed. Maybe recently, I had just started to be afraid of her, but I never told anyone anything. I endured it, kept it to myself, and stayed quiet. In the end, I wasn't able to reconcile my sister and her husband, but between you and me, I actually started to thank God that he saved her from this family, especially after my wife's brother, who was married to my sister, had an accident. Work let him go, and now he's unemployed. As for my situation, I thought life would finally smile upon me. But it seems I've been destined for misery and poverty since I was young, as they say. I tried to endure, move on, and tell myself that's just life. Life is like that, and you have to bear it. But it's clear that life itself was stubborn and displeased with me. My wife started complaining about the house, saying she saw shadows and heard voices. At first, I felt she was playing me to change apartments, but I had no liquidity then. When the topic was brought up to my father-in-law, I said I could move out to make her comfortable. The kind man told me there were many apartments in the family house, and we could move into one. At first, I refused. I was afraid he'd see me as opportunistic, and of course, they would too, especially since whenever I entered the house, I'd remember the parents who abandoned me. I couldn't even bear to pass by the floor where his apartment was. So how could I live in the apartment across from his and be neighbors? But all that faded before the persistence of my wife and mother-in-law. And I gave in for the umpteenth time. I agreed to their words. We moved into the apartment across from my father's in the family house, and so I began to see him. Coming and going, when our eyes met, I saw gloating in his, as if mocking me that he marries a more beautiful woman every day, while my wife has become a disfigured monster. Let me tell you, I can't forget the night we all ran out of the mosque in the middle of prayer. That was after we heard the screams of everyone in the neighborhood. At that moment, it turned into panic from the shock. I ran to see what was happening. When I got near the house, I saw the fire had engulfed the whole building from below. It had literally surrounded it. All the storage units downstairs were burning. Screams and smoke filled the street. It felt like ages before the ambulance arrived, and the fire department was with it. Because of this accident, the family house was severely damaged. Everyone started looking for a place to stay. I went back with my wife's family to our apartment. We accepted what happened, and we said it was destiny. One day, my mother-in-law called and rushed me home from work. As soon as I entered, she spoke and said, "Did you find out, genius, what's causing everything that's happened since this marriage started? What's happening? I found this charm in your children's room. It's definitely the cause of all this trouble you're in." I took it from her hands, sat on the sofa, and asked her emotionally, "Who would benefit from doing this to us, and why? I've never harmed anyone. It doesn't matter who. What matters is that we found the reason ruining your life, and this charm needs to be taken to someone to break it. But I don't know anyone who breaks these things. I'll handle it." Thank God he revealed the hidden to us at the right time, and I thanked God that I found it, left them, and went into my room. A while later, when my father-in-law returned, he came and sat with me. He kept reminding me of God and his generosity, and that this was a test, and that messengers and prophets were subjected to great harm and were patient. With his words, I replied weakly, "I'm afraid he might be the one who did this to me. Just as I'm also afraid that he might be the cause of the fire that broke out in the warehouses after we moved into the house. I'm afraid he's punishing us because you opened your home to us and let us stay." At that moment, my uncle went silent and drifted off, as if I had opened his eyes and removed the veil from them. The fights between my uncle and my father became very frequent, especially when my uncle reviewed the sugar factory's profits and discovered my father had funneled a lot of their money into his own account. That's when my uncle gathered all my aunts to sit with him, and everyone confronted each other with what they knew. By the end of the meeting, no one could get anything out of my father, right or wrong. That was because he kept harping on the same tune, that they got an education and money was spent on them, but not him. In the end, they agreed to divide everything up, but that same night, the factory caught fire. And not just the factory, all the family properties caught fire too. I was terrified by all the news I was hearing. I thank God that my sister got out of that relationship 1,000 times over, and I also left the house and went to work. When I returned, I headed straight to my grandfather's house. When my wife called me, I told her I had divorced her, and in a few days, she would receive her papers. After I hung up with her, I went in to see Habiba. I found her holding Mom's picture and drifting off. I approached her and patted her. I told her our rights have been restored. Be happy. be happy, and never, on any day, ever feel sad. I can't be happy. The joy is meaningless and incomplete. Just wait until they find out I sold the apartment their daughter is staying in too. That will be the shock of their lives. They think I divorced her and left her everything, but they don't know I've been selling the apartment for a month. Are you satisfied now? Do you feel like you got your rights? I restored our rights. I broke their hearts and took revenge on them. It's never okay for us to be thrown into the street, for our lives to be ruined while they live in bliss, and for them not to be held accountable for what they did. But innocent people were harmed. Your wife, you disfigured and destroyed her psychologically, and you cursed her even though she was innocent. And her brother, you were the reason for the accident he had, and he was fired from his job because of it, meaning you cut off his livelihood. That's besides the disasters you caused for them when you got in their midst. Yes, that happened. They had to be held accountable because they saw the injustice against my mother with their own eyes. Remember when he used to beat her and she'd cry out to them for help? And remember when he dumped us at your grandfather's and didn't spend a penny on us? What should I remind you of? And what should I leave out? I'll remind you that he doesn't ask about us at all, and he even removed us from all his considerations. You have become sick. Get treated, because you destroyed the lives of so many innocent people. All I did was take my rights from all of them. Each one of them paid the price for their silence regarding our oppression. As for you, just stay kind like your mother. May God have mercy on her. I don't know what to say to you. Can you actually sleep? And how will you silence the voice of your conscience? I got angry at her and left the room. As I was leaving, I bumped into my grandfather, who asked me what was wrong. I told him in anger that it was nothing. I went into my room, locked the door, and that was it. I decided to tell you everything that happened to me without exaggeration. I am convinced by your opinion. Perhaps my revenge was wrong. But this is the justice they deserve. Justice is relative and differs from one person to another. You might see what I did as wrong. But when I reflect, I wish I could have done even more than that. The fire inside me toward them hasn't cooled, even after taking my revenge. And yes, I'm not regretful, by the way. Well, that brings today's story to an end. But you say you are convinced by my opinion while saying you aren't regretful and the fire inside you hasn't cooled. So you don't need my opinion. No matter what I say, you won't feel regret. And you won't be convinced by it, because you see things a certain way and don't want to change. But I will state my opinion, even if you don't want to hear it. There are others who will listen to it. And perhaps, if they have the same problems, my opinion might make a difference for them. I see what you did is wrong. We cannot answer wrong with wrong. Innocent people were harmed by your actions, so what you did is wrong in my view, and you will be held accountable before God. That is my opinion. You can also check people's comments. They will share their opinions too. And with that, today's episode and stories come to an end. You have the right, my friend, to believe or disbelieve all or part of these stories, for these are the experiences of our listeners. I thank writer Lisa Zoglul for writing the episode in the radio format you just heard. I also thank writer Muhammad Shaban for preparing all the episodes of the General of Horror program. In the end, if you are new to the channel, please don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell icon to receive all our new updates. And if you are one of those who like to support me, please don't forget to like, comment, and share. Thank you very much. You've been with Muhammad Gwali and the General of Horror program. Peace be upon you.